Once upon a time, not so long ago, there was a little girl, and her name was Emily. And she had a shop. There it is. It was rather an unusual shop because it didn't sell anything. You see, everything in that shop window was a thing that somebody had once lost, and Emily had found, and brought home to Bagpuss. Emily's cat, Bagpuss. The most important, the most beautiful, the most magical, saggy old cloth cat in the whole wide world. Well now, one day Emily found a thing. And she brought it back to the shop and put it down in front of Bagpuss, who was in the shop window, fast asleep as usual. But then Emily said some magic words. Bagpuss, dear Bagpuss, old fat furry catpuss, wake up and look at this thing that I bring. Wake up, be bright, be golden and light. Bagpuss, oh hear what I sing. And Bagpuss was wide awake. And when Bagpuss wakes up, all his friends wake up too. The mice on the mouse organ woke up and stretched. Madeleine, the rag doll. Gabriel, the toad. And last of all, Professor Yaffle, who was a very distinguished old woodpecker. He climbed down off his bookend and went to see what it was that Emily had brought.
A basket. Yes, a basket with things in it. How nice of Miss Emily to bring us a basket with things in it. I'm not at all sure what we're supposed to do with it. I can't see what the things are.
We will see what is in that thing. We will ask it what's in the basket. Take out every cent from the basket. Isn't this a funny looking thing?
That's a twig broom. A tiny broom made of twigs.
What's it for? What do you do with it? What's it for?
You brush the cobwebs out of the sky, don't you, Madeleine?
That's right. If you can get up high enough, like the old woman.
Eh? Which old woman? Where?
Up in the sky.
Oh, where? What?
We're going to sing a song.
There was an old woman tossed up in a basket 17 times as high as the moon. Where she was going I couldn't but ask it, for in her hand she carried a broom. Old woman, quoth I, where are you going to up so high? To brush the cobwebs out of the sky. Shall I go with you? I by and by.
There's an organ roll here. The marvelous mechanical mouse organ.
There was an old woman tossed up in a basket 17 times as high as the moon. Where she was going I couldn't but ask it. In her hand she carried a broom. Old woman, quoth I, where are you going to up so high? To brush the cobwebs out of the sky. Shall I go with you? I by and by.
It's all very unlikely. this basket couldn't possibly be the one the old woman was tossed up in. If indeed she ever was, and I certainly don't think she could have gone 17 times as high as the moon. That's rather a long way up.
The moon isn't nearly as far away as the sun.
Isn't it, Janie Mouse? How do you know?
My Uncle Henry once went to the sun. Or nearly.
Your Uncle Henry? Oh, he was a church mouse, I think.
Yes, that's right. Uncle Henry and Auntie Ada. They were church mice. They were very good church mice. They brought in daisies to decorate the church and even sang in the choir, but they had such small voices that nobody ever heard them, and they were very poor because nobody ever left bacon rind or breadcrumbs in the collection for them, or even seemed to know that they were there at all. Well, one day Uncle Henry said he wasn't going to be a poor church mouse any longer. He was going to be a rich church mouse. He was going to make a flying machine out of a little basket and some cabbage leaves and fly up and scrape some of the gold off the sun with a teaspoon. Auntie Ada said she thought the sun was rather a long way up, but Uncle Henry showed her that it was only just above the weathercock on the steeple. Uncle Henry and Auntie Ada flew their flying machine up into the sky. They flew it above the weathercock and up, up, up into the clouds and above the clouds. But however high they flew, the sun seemed just as far away as ever. The sun is running away from us, explained Uncle Henry. We must go home. They didn't quite know where their church was, and so by mistake they came down in the bishop's palace beside the cathedral. They were lucky, though, because they were met by an important-looking cathedral mouse who was very wise and learned. He told them that the sun is not made of gold, but of fire, and is 93 million miles away. He also said there was plenty of bacon rind at the bishop's palace, and said the bishop will be happy to invite them to breakfast every day.
They weren't poor church mice anymore.
Would this basket fly? This basket here?
No, of course not. Though I suppose it could be made to fly. There must be something that flaps air like a bird's wing does.
I know. Mice, look on the shelf there, behind the blue and white jar.
Come on, look. There are two sort of stick things here. Look.
Thank you. Now, look at this.
Ooh.
Isn't that beautiful?
What is it for?
This is a fan. You flap it and it blows cool air on you to keep you cool in warm weather. Like this. There.
Lovely. That's lovely.
Now, what exactly are you all doing?
We are going to make the basket into a flying machine by fixing these two fans to it.
Well, I don't want to seem discouraging or anything, but I'm not sure that would really work. I happen to be, in my way, something of an expert on the subject of flying machines, being something of an aeronaut myself.
Can you fly, Apple?
Well, no, not at the moment, but if you mice will be kind enough to fetch me the little green book third along from my bookend, I will be able to give you some proper information about flying machines. Yes, that's the one. Careful. Oh, you have dropped it. Oh, well, it'll do there. Now, let us have a look. Where are we? Pratt's Aeronautics. Yes, here we are. Come on, mice, come and look at this. From bits of string and this and that, A gentleman named Percy Pratt made quite a perfect aeroplane, then took it all apart again because it wouldn't fly. He made another one next day. A pity that it got away, and looped the loop above the town, then hurtled back and knocked him down. He sat and wondered why. His next machine, it was the third, he built of feathers like a bird. Flap, flap, he cried, and up I'll soar. I should have thought of it before. There's really no excuse. Just then he gave a mighty sneeze. The feathers, blown off by the breeze, went upwards, downwards, left and right, exactly like a pillow fight, and not a bit of use. I'll try once more, said Percy Pratt. If this one doesn't work, that's that. It didn't take him very long to make a plane with nothing wrong from every point of view. It may be true, as people tell, he couldn't drive it very well, and travelled, if I must be blunt, both upside down and back to front. But look at him. He flew. There we are. You see, if you want to know about a particular subject, you must study it in detail. Otherwise, you will never make a flying machine that really flies.
This flying machine really flies?
This one? But this couldn't fly. No. But it's basically unsound. The whole idea is ridiculous. It can't possibly. Oh.
A clever young mouse, he made a contraption, flippity flappity up it flies, pulling the handle with delicate action, flippity flappity up it flies. Oh yaffle, so clever and wise, look at us, up we're flying. Easy, it's easy, we're only just trying. Do you really believe your eyes?
What's going on up there? What did you say, mice? What?
Oh yaffle, now have a good look. Are you quite sure we are really flying? This isn't the way that they flew in the book. Yaffle, just use your eyes.
What? There's something odd going on up there. It's a trick. Look, Madeleine, Gabriel, Bagpuss, look, they aren't flying at all. They're on a string. They are being hoisted about on a string.
That's right, Yaffle. You've noticed.
So, the mice placed the basket carefully in the corner of the window and left it there, so that if an old woman who wanted to brush the cobwebs out of the sky should happen to come past, she would see it there and perhaps come in to collect it. And so their work was done.
Bagpuss gave a big yawn and settled down to sleep. And of course, when Bagpuss goes to sleep, all his friends go to sleep too. The mice were ornaments on the mouse organ. Gabriel and Madeleine were just dolls. And Professor Yaffle was a carved wooden bookend in the shape of a woodpecker. Even Bagpuss himself, once he was asleep, was just an old, saggy cloth cat. Baggy and a bit loose at the seams. But Emily loved him. Once upon a time, not so long ago, there was a little girl, and her name was Emily. And she had a shop. unusual shop because it didn't sell anything. You see, everything in that shop window was a thing that somebody had once lost, and Emily had found, and brought home to Bagpuss. Emily's cat, Bagpuss. The most important, the most beautiful, the most magical, saggy old cloth cat in the whole wide world. Well now, one day Emily found a thing. And she brought it back to the shop and put it down in front of Bagpuss, who was in the shop window, fast asleep as usual. But then Emily said some magic words. Bagpuss, dear Bagpuss, old fat furry catpuss, wake up and look at this thing that I bring. Wake up, be bright, be golden and light. Bagpuss, oh hear what I sing. And Bagpuss was wide awake. And when Bagpuss wakes up, all his friends wake up too. The mice on the mouse organ woke up and stretched. Madeleine, the rag doll. Gabriel, the toad. And last of all, Professor Yaffle, who is a very distinguished old woodpecker. He climbed down off his bookend and went to see what it was that Emily had brought.
A piece of cloth. Thin cloth with markings on it. Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't the slightest idea what this thing is, or was, or is going to be.
Well, I should say it's probably a piece of cloth.
I know what it is. It's a house.
A house? A house for a mouse?
No, a house for a rag doll.
No, ridiculous. That is a piece of cloth, not a house. Who could live in a house made of cloth? It would fall down.
A rag doll. A doll made of rag.
But what would a rag doll do all day in a rag house?
Read rag books. Dance ragtime dances.
No. You are not being serious. This is a serious question. What would a rag doll do? What would he eat?
Cloth sausages.
No.
Red flannel soup.
No.
Green velvet jelly on white button plates.
No, Bagpuss. These mice are being silly again. That piece of cloth couldn't be a house, could it? What do you think? Oh, well, I'll try and think. But that isn't an easy thing to think about. I shall need a thinking cap.
I know. Use the piece of cloth as a thinking cap.
Come on, hold it. We will pat it down nice and flat. We will bring it on. We will pin it on. There's a hat for a thinking cat. And there's a hat for a thinking cat.
Oh, yes, of course. That is a house. You were quite right, mice. It's a rag doll's house, just like the one made by Uncle Fiedel.
Uncle Fiedel? Who's Uncle Fiedel?
I know Uncle Fiedel.
Yes, we know about Uncle Fiedel. We'll sing about him if you think about him.
So Bagpuss thought. Oh, yes, Uncle Fiedel. There he is.
There was a man made all a rag, his name was Uncle Fiedel. His coat, it was a barley bag, all sewed up with a needle. His nose was rag, his toes were rag, his legs were Harris Tweedle. His eyes were dots of cotton frocks, they called him
Uncle Fiddle was a rag doll. He walked through the rag doll country, where it is always summer and the green velvet leaves grew on the hedges, and all the year the flowers bloomed in the prettiest materials you ever saw. Uncle Fiddle needed nothing. If he was hungry, he just had to unpick a cotton cauliflower or a corduroy carrot, and there was his dinner. If he was tired, he just had to find a cotton wool bush and lie himself down on it. Wasn't it odd, then, that one day he found himself feeling sad? He felt he needed something. He felt he needed a house. A house to live in, with a real bed in it.
Old Uncle Fiddle had no house, dear little Uncle Fiddle. He had no bed, he had no house, poor little Uncle Fiddle. Poor little uncle, silly old uncle, hadn't got a bed, so he took a bag of cloth and rag, a roll of cotton thread, oh.
Uncle Fiddle emptied all the pieces and patches of cloth out of his rag bag and set them out on the green velvet grass. The other rag dolls saw him working away, and they were very puzzled. Then they asked him what he was making. And when he said he was making a house, they were even more puzzled. But Uncle Fiddle went on working. He laid out pieces of calico and bombazine and watered silk and purple plush. Then he started to work.
Now first he sewed the kitchen wall with cotton thread and needle, with stitches small the windows tall were sewn by Uncle Fiddle. The curtains lush were purple plush and bombazine the mantle, a bottle of milk was watered silk and calico the candle.
Uncle Fiddle sewed and stitched and patched and cobbled until he had made the pieces of the four walls of his house, with pictures on the walls and tables and chairs sewn on. He even made a real bed from a quilted patch of old eiderdown to go inside his own house. Everything went well until he sewed the walls and the roof together. Then suddenly the trouble started. His house would not stand up. It was made of rag and it was all flippy-floppy. Uncle Fiddle tried and tried, but every time he nearly made it stand up, one bit of it would bend, and down it would all go, flat on top of him. Well, of course, all the other rag dolls knew how to make things made of rags stay up, the same way as they stayed up. They were stuffed with cotton wool. So they all marched out into the fields and gathered loads of cotton wool flowers from the cotton wool bushes for Uncle Fiddle to stuff his house with. Then Uncle Fiddle's house stood up beautifully. But there was still one thing wrong with it. What was it? Well, of course, Uncle Fiddle's house was so full of stuffing, he couldn't get into it. He couldn't go in through the door. He couldn't lie on his new bed or use any of the useful things he had sewn because his house was full of cotton wool. Well, that really was a problem. All the rag dolls sat down and thought as hard as they could. But then one small rag doll had an idea. She said, "Why don't you have the inside of your house on the outside? It is always warm here, and it never rains, so there's no need to have the indoors indoors. You could have the indoors out of doors." "That's a good idea," shouted Uncle Fiddle. He jumped up, and quick as a flash, he emptied the stuffing out of his house, turned it inside out, and stuffed it full again. And there it was, a lovely house with the inside on the outside. The fireplace and the mantelpiece and even the grandfather clock were on the outside. "Yes," said Uncle Fiddle, "I like that house. It suits me."
Now Fiddle's house was inside out, clever old Uncle Fiddle. The out was in, the in was out, it suited Uncle Fiddle. One more kitchen, one more parlor, one more was the bedroom. He lay his head on his quilted bed, sleepy Uncle Fiddle.
What a pretty story. What a delightful story. Absolute rubbish, every word of it, but quite delightful. And you, Bagpuss, you look quite absurd with that piece of cloth on your head.
Yes, Bagpuss, give it to me. I will finish sewing it up.
But Bagpuss, I still say that is quite an extraordinary place for anyone to live.
Oh, I don't know. People live in much more extraordinary places than that. Take these mice, for instance. Mice, oh, tell us true. Tell us the place that is home for you.
We are the mice that house. We live on the top of a number 2 bus. The moon bangs a very clank on a jolly little omnibus that just suits us.
Oh, ridiculous, ridiculous. Those mice are never serious.
Yes, little Jenny Mouse.
Madeleine, Madeleine, tell us true. Where is the house that belongs to you?
Me? A house that belongs to me? No, this is where I live. I'm just Madeleine, a doll made of scraps. You'll find me in a cupboard or a box, perhaps. If my mice are near, then my home is here. Though sometimes I wish I had half a dozen laps. Yes, yes, I love you all. Yes, but there are rather a lot of you. Oh, down you get, down you get. Here is the rag doll's house, all finished.
Oh, yes, that is very handsome. That's not Uncle Veedle's house, because that one has the outside on the outside like an ordinary house.
So the mice took cotton wool from the cupboard and they stuffed the little house with it. When it was full of stuffing, they dragged it to the front of the window and left it there, so that if a homeless rag doll should happen to come past, he would see it there and come in and live in it. And so their work was done.
Bagpuss gave a big yawn and settled down to sleep. And of course, when Bagpuss goes to sleep, all his friends go to sleep too. The mice were ornaments on the mouse organ. Gabriel and Madeleine were just dolls. And Professor Yaffle was a carved wooden bookend in the shape of a woodpecker. Even Bagpuss himself, once he was asleep, was just an old, saggy cloth cat. Baggy and a bit loose at the seams. But Emily loved him.
There once was an engine who ran away, just up and went. Ran away, stacked up his tender and headed on the line. Toot toot, farewell, goodbye.
You overheard the wicked old diesel say he was heading for the scrapyard any day.
He didn't want to wait for the fateful days,
So the little old engine ran away. He huffed and he puffed, his wheels started turning. He chuffed and he chuffed his little firebox burning. He slipped his breath, let his whistle fly. Toot toot, farewell, goodbye.
cootie bee, cootie bee.
Some search high, the others search low.
Where did he run? Where did he run? Gotta bring a little engine home. So they all went out to look around.
Far and wide, and up and down.
No matter where they searched, no one seemed to know. Where did the little old engine go?
Thomas finally tracked him down. He was cold and blue and all alone.
Told him he was needed back urgently.
Me? Really? Yes, you silly engine.
'Cause he's the pride of the railway. So he huffed and he puffed, his wheels started turning. He chuffed and he chuffed, the little firebox burning. He slipped his brake and he was on